GH1 TV, your best experience.
Hi there, good evening. Welcome to State of Affairs here on GH1 Television. I am Francis Abban. It's another Thursday night, and of course, there's a big conversation that we need to bring to you. Tonight, we're talking about the state of local governance in Ghana. There's been some discussions and some conference happening in the last 10 days relative to this. And tonight, we want to look closely at governance at its roots in our districts, in our municipalities, in our metropolitan assemblies, and how we improve that system as we have it today. Is the talk of an election of MMDCs the way to go? What more do we need to do when it comes to reform at the base, when it comes to local governance in Ghana? That's what we'll be discussing tonight for our main discussion here on the show. So that's what we'll be looking at. My guest joining me, Mausi Dumenu, the Senior Programs Officer and Team Lead for Elections at CDD Ghana, and Vera Addo, the unrepentant Liverpool fan, the Youth Advisor for the Volunteers Cooperation Program at Oxfam, are joining us for our conversation tonight. Promised to be very, very exciting. But as you may well be aware, today has been a very solemn day for the UK, and with Ghana being a Commonwealth nation, also mourning for the passing of Queen Elizabeth the second. Tonight we will bring you some insights and some reactions from Great Britain on the sad news tonight and the change of leadership for the head of state for Great Britain and what it means going forward. But let me remind you, this show is brought to you with the kind of sponsorship of MTN. MTN is everywhere you go, and Cable. If you need to make an urgent call but you realize that you don't have credit, or your very important conversation was cut short because you ran out of airtime, well, there's no need for all that stress, because on MTN, all you have to do is dial star 506 hash, and then you get to borrow credit on MTN Extra Time. And the best part is that you can also borrow data by dialing that same number, star 506 hash, and you can bundle data whenever you run out to continue browsing as always. Your conversation don't need to end. Borrow extra time now and enjoy the things you love on your favorite network. That's MTN. Also, dear parents, if you're watching us tonight, why do you think milk is important in the family's meal, especially for adults and for children above 6? Because milk provides essential nutrients that enhance healthy growth. Our milk is fortified with a unique blend of essential vitamins called Vitarich. The vitamins in Vitarich are essential for good eyesight development, fighting infections, building strong bones and teeth, and B9 for brain development. So help your loved ones, support their growth with Carbol milk, which contains Vitarich in their meals. Carbol is also available in 5 delicious flavors and available in a shop near you. Carbol is definitely our milk. So as I said, tonight we're spending some time on the sad passing of Queen Elizabeth the second, born in the year 1926. Sadly, she's passed today in the year 2022. So we begin the show with this sad news coming in of the UK's longest serving monarch, Queen Elizabeth, passing. She passed on peacefully this afternoon at the Balmoral Castle in Scotland. A 96-year-long life of love, life and service. Born in the year 1926, she took up the leadership role at a 26, just before her 27th birthday in the year 1952, serving for 70 years, and sad to know today that she's passed on this afternoon. Her father died in February. She's passing on in the month of September. The flood of messages of commiserations and the outpour of love has been immense from across the globe, from the UK itself, and all the countries around the world. As one would expect, in the coming days will be one of a celebration of a great life which has spanned more than 2 generations. Her life straddles over 3 generations, 4 years shy of being a centurion. Tonight we mourn with the people of the United Kingdom and say, God bless the Queen. But in that same breath, it also ushers in a new dispensation for a new leadership for the UK. The heir, then Prince Charles, now becomes King Charles III, per what we have been made to understand. Now, per the London Bridge is Down protocol, a series of media coverage will be spawned in the coming days all over the world, especially in the Commonwealth nations, for which Ghana is one of them, and we'll do our bit to update you here on GH1 television and on all our EIB platforms as we continue to follow this very, very long and solemn process for paying our respects to the memory of Queen Elizabeth II. So we want to share with you tonight briefly a quick snapshot of her life and her contribution in that life from 1926 to the year 2022.
I declare before you all that my whole life, whether it be long or short, shall be devoted to your service.
Outside the palace, 100,000 people surged forward in a solid mass. They wanted Elizabeth. They wanted Philip.
I've just been talking to your Secretary of State for Health.
Thank you so much, Sarah.
It's one small step for man.
What I say to you now, as your Queen and as a grandmother, I say from my heart. First, I want to pay tribute to Diana myself. With the benefit of historical hindsight, we can all see things which we would wish had been done differently, or not at all.
Now, there are many adjectives that can be used to describe Queen Elizabeth II. One has been a life of integrity and of service to country and to the world. Some have noted with a lot of enthusiasm that she was one of many who, in a world that struggled to respect the protocols relative to COVID-19, she religiously did that, even at the point of burying her husband. Amidst the calls for many people to join in that moment, it had to be restricted, and she sat alone, respecting the protocol of social distancing at a very, very difficult time for her. She was the elder daughter of Prince Albert, Duke of York, and his wife, Lady Elizabeth Bowes-Lyon. As the child of a younger son of King George V, the young Elizabeth had little prospect of acceding the throne until her uncle, Edward VIII, abdicated in her father's favor on the 11th of December in the year 1936, at which time her father became King George VI, and she became presumptive. This princess's education was supervised by her mother, who entrusted her daughters to a governess, Marion Crawford. The princess was also grounded in history by C.H.K. Martin, afterwards provost of Eton College, and had instruction from visiting teachers in music and languages. Now, during World War II, she and her sister, Princess Margaret Rose, per force, spent much of their time safely away from the London Blitz and separated from their parents, living mostly at Balmoral Castle in Scotland and at the Royal Lodge, Windsor, and the Windsor Castle. And I note clearly there from where they spent a lot of their time in the Balmoral Castle, the same place where she's passed on this afternoon to glory. So in the early 1947, Princess Elizabeth then went with the King and Queen to South Africa. After her return, there was an announcement of her betrothal to her distant cousin, Lieutenant Philip Mountbatten of the Royal Navy, formerly Prince Philip of Greece and Denmark, and the marriage took place in Westminster Abbey on the 20th of November in the year 1947. On the eve of the wedding, her father, the king, conferred upon the bridegroom the titles of Duke of Edinburgh, Earl of Merioneth, and Baron Greenwich. They took residence at Clarence House in London. Their first child, Prince Charles, now King Charles III. His full name then was Charles Philip Arthur George, born on 14th November 1948 at the Buckingham Palace. And in the summer of 1951, the health of King George VI entered into a serious decline, and Princess Elizabeth represented him at the Trooping the Colour and on various other state occasions. On 7th October, she and her husband set out on a highly successful tour of Canada and Washington, D.C., and after Christmas in England, she and the Duke set out in January 1952 for a tour of Australia and New Zealand. But en route at Sagana, Kenya, news reached them of the King's death on the 6th of February 1952. Now that meant that Elizabeth had her status changed from being a princess to the Queen. And since then, the coronation was done at the Westminster Abbey in June of 1953, but she carried out her first state opening of Parliament on the 4th of November 1952. Her coronation was a year later at the Westminster Abbey on the 2nd of June 1953, and since then she has been the longest serving monarch of Great Britain. A lot has been said about what's happened in her time. Many generations of conflicts, of change in leadership, of some tragic moments, including the passing of Princess Diana, who was the wife of then Prince Charles, now King Charles, and that came with its own storm and its own challenge. Then it's rolled on to other new challenges with the grandchildren, Harry and Meghan, and the recent issues that have come up. The passing of Queen Elizabeth's husband, Prince Philip, did not come without pain for the Queen, and you could almost tell that her demeanor at the time was a very painful and solemn one. And just a little over a year after the husband's passing, we've also had to see her leave us at the age of 96. Many of the celebrations done were very colorful. The most recent one done had her not publicly take full participation in it, but you could tell her excitement for even the videos that were shot of her, for the promotional videos that were done. A lot of celebration for her life and of service, 70 years of service to her country, as the Queen and the head of state, and also as the matriarch of Great Britain. So once again, may God bless the Queen, and in that same breath, for that new chapter coming in, may God bless the King, King Charles III. In the coming days, we will know what the arrangements will be for the final rites that will be performed, and also for the subsequent change or transitioning to a new head of state, and the coronation of King Charles III. Now, a lot of things are happening in the UK as well as here in Ghana because of the British High Commission. As you may well imagine, all missions across the country, in fact, all high commissions across the world are marking the sad passing of Queen Elizabeth II. Vanessa Danso is standing by at the British High Commission here in Accra, and we can see live pictures from there now. Vanessa, good evening to you. We know it's quite solemn at the British High Commission, but talk to us. What have you observed? What's going on?
Good evening to our viewers. We are currently at the British High Commission to gauge the mood here, obviously because of the passing of the longest reigning monarch Britain has ever had. And you know, the mood here is currently sober. There isn't much going on given the time. It's late, most people have gone home, so there isn't like a lot of activities ongoing. But the British High Commissioner is not here, but we have Beth Cadman. Beth Cadman is the development director here at the commission, and she's going to be addressing us shortly. She's got a statement that she'd like to read, so we'll just take over from her. But before that, Beth, I would like to know, how did you receive this news here?
Obviously, we received formal notification from London, as well as hearing the announcements through the media. Good evening. The death of Her Majesty the Queen is a moment of great sadness for the UK and so many around the world. We mourn as a country with the passing of our cherished sovereign. Queen Elizabeth II was the rock on which modern Britain was built, and the UK has grown and flourished under her reign. She served her country with dignity and pride for 70 years. We thank His Excellency, the President, Nana Akufo-Addo, for his kind and heartfelt words marking her passing. Her Majesty championed the development of the Commonwealth, and we're proud of the long-standing relationship and the strong role Ghana has played in the family spanning every continent. Today, the crown passes to our new monarch, our new head of state, His Majesty King Charles III. The UK will now enter an official period of mourning, and we will do so until after Her Majesty's funeral. Thank you.
Thank you. And as just she stated, the UK is plunging into a state of mourning, like most countries in the world. In fact, I dare say all the countries in the world will be mourning because we've lost a great woman. Like I stated earlier, the longest monarch the Britain has ever had. It's a very sad situation. Everybody is mourning. Here in Ghana, the president has directed that our flags will be flying at half-mast for 7 days straight to mourn the passing of the Queen, who died earlier at her quarters estate in Balmoral. Yeah, Francis.
Thank you for that quick update and also for that word from the British High Commission on the sad passing of Queen Elizabeth II. You may have heard the officer at the High Commission mention the President's message that was shared. Let me just read that for you tonight. It says, on behalf of the government and people of Ghana, I extend my deepest condolences to the new British monarch, King Charles III, the royal family, the Prime Minister, and the government and people of Great Britain on the death today of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. In honor of her memory, I've directed that all official flags in the nation fly at half-mast for 7 days as from tomorrow, Friday, 9th September 2022. May God bless her soul and give her peaceful rest in his bosom until the last day of the resurrection, when we shall all meet again. We've seen the picture here in Accra. Let's take a quick look at what's happening in London as well, where the Buckingham Palace is located. We can speak to Ifwa Hagan. She's a royal correspondent joining us tonight via Zoom. Good evening to you, Ifwa.
Good evening.
It's been a very difficult day for all of us, but what's been the mood in London, and also with the process towards the full respects to be paid to what a great woman Queen Elizabeth II?
Well, it's a very somber mood here in London, as you can imagine, and across the United Kingdom, actually. We've had terrible weather all day, and that is reflected in the mood. Crowds are gathering at the moment outside Buckingham Palace in the pouring rain, paying their respects, singing the national anthem, God Save the Queen, not yet, God Save the King. That's going to take some getting used to, but a very somber mood, like I said, now here in the United Kingdom. We are entering a period of mourning, actually, that starts at 9 a.m. tomorrow. This is what's known as D-Day, and every day after that gets a number. So tomorrow is D-Day -1, and we'll go through to D-Day -10, which we think will be the day of the Queen's funeral. So over the next 10 days, you will have various things happening. It will start with tomorrow. There'll be declarations and proclamations read out in the centre of London. King Charles will be in attendance at those as well. Later on in the week, the Queen's body will be transported from her Scottish estate in Balmoral down here to London, where the Queen will lie in state. The body will travel overnight in the train from Edinburgh Waverley into a London station. Then the Queen will lie in state. King Charles will visit Wales because he was the Prince of Wales, so he'll visit Wales and also have discussions with the Welsh First Minister. He will also address Parliament next week as well, after 6 days of Parliament being excused, although we are going to have tributes paid in Parliament tomorrow, which is Friday, and on Saturday, unusually as well. It's only the 5th time in history that Parliament has sat on Saturday. Now, the business of Parliament has been suspended, but we will have tributes paid to Her Majesty in Parliament on Friday and Saturday. So that should take us through until potentially a week on Monday, when the funeral will take place. That's D-Day -10.
Okay, quite a lot to happen between now and then. We will follow closely and see what happens. How would you describe Queen Elizabeth II? And I ask you directly because for some time you had been covering the Queen Elizabeth II. How would you remember her?
You know, I was thinking about that question earlier on today. I've been doing royal corresponding and commentating for some years now, and the way I would describe Queen Elizabeth II is a constant. She was a constant public servant, someone who was so serious about her job, who was so faithful. You know, she was working up until 72 hours ago. We saw her earlier on this week on Monday at the kissing hand ceremony, handover of power to Liz Truss, our new Prime Minister. You know, she was loyal, and she was a hard-working woman, but she was a constant. She's the only queen that I have ever known, and a lot of us have ever known. You know, there's a generation above us that perhaps existed in the time of King George, but Queen Elizabeth has been that constant. And that second Elizabethan reign, I think, is probably going to be the greatest reign of any monarch. Look at how the world has changed in 70 years. Her dedication to service is unmatched. So I would describe her as a constant.
Thank you, Ifeoma Hagan, for that update tonight. As I said, many more to come in the coming days as we continue to monitor closely the final respects to be paid to Queen Elizabeth II and what the transitioning will look like also for the new head of state for Great Britain, King Charles III. Thank you, Ifeoma. And that should do it for tonight. And I'll look at the passing of Queen Elizabeth II. As I said, here on all our platforms, GH1 Television, Star FM, all our platforms across the EIB network, we will be bringing you full coverage of the respects to be paid to Queen Elizabeth II and her passing all the way through to when everything is sorted out. And then the new dawn will also be equally analyzed and covered here on GH1 Television. We'll go for a short break, but before we go for that break, may I remind you that the show is brought to you with the kindness of association with MTN. MTN is everywhere you go. If you need to make that urgent call but you realize you don't have credits, well, guess what? You can get some extra time and be able to make that call and close that deal of yours. Just dial *506# and then you get to borrow credit on MTN Extra Time. The best part is that you can also borrow data by dialing the same number, *506#, and you can bundle data whenever you run out to continue browsing. As always, your conversation don't need to end. You can borrow extra time now and enjoy the things you love on your favorite network. That's MTN. After the break, we'll switch our attention from Queen Elizabeth II to the state of local governance in Ghana. There's been some talk about reforms. The last time we were anywhere close to it, it was about the election of MMDCEs. That didn't happen. But does it mean the door is closed? No, it hasn't. There's a new conversation on the table that we need to look at on how we improve our local governance system. And my guest tonight will help us to appreciate the varied angles to this particular conversation. Stay with us. You're watching State of Affairs.
There are many ways to get around, but there's only one way to pay.
Momo?
Sure.
many styles to choose, but there's only one sure way to pay.
Momo? Yes.
There's so many you can buy, but there's only one sure way to pay.
Momo?
Yes.
Fish that to share my enemy.
There's so much variety, but there's only one sure way to pay. There's so many ways to get together, but there's only one sure way to pay. Got a payment to make? Use MTN Momo and enjoy real convenience in all your financial transactions. Live life the brighter way with MTN Momo. Just Momo it.
MTN.
Alande, make I walk you through my everyday life. Busy from the morning light. My to-do list long, shadow fit to overlap. So sharp, turn on mobile app. School fees check, light bills check. Do I'm with speed like a G4 jet. Maybe other day I am not upset. Check, I don't even use checks, city check.
Join the Absa family and make fast, easy, and safe transactions with our digital products. Log on to absa.com.gh. No long tail. We like them simple and easy.
Believe me, no long things in my life. Go, like I'm simple and easy.
My name is William Kofi Nti, the CEO of Ad Pharma Limited. We are an organization that is always seeking innovative solutions to make our operations easy. So when our insurance agent recommended Procure Chat to insure from Star Assurance, we did not hesitate to try it. I can tell you the process was seamless and 100% visual with no human intervention. You simply save number 0242426160 and start your chat with Procure.
Water is life. Water gives life. Water moves through nature in a never-ending cycle. Observe the beauty of water as it flows all around us, refreshing and restoring. Gaze in wonder at the stillness and beauty of nature. There's harmony in nature everywhere around. Water revitalizes the body and keeps you going strong. Water is life. Water gives life. Drink Awake Purified Drinking Water. One for life. So relax and unwind, and in the calmness of nature, find the rest you desire. For every bottle of Awake you buy, an amount to be donated to the National Cardiothoracic Center. This advert is FDA approved.
Thanks for staying with us. You're watching State of Affairs here on GHOne Television. I am Francis Aben. Tonight we're talking about the state of local governance in Ghana. As I said, there's been some talk about reforms. And the last time we went anywhere close to it was with the election of MDCs and the referendum towards that. That didn't happen. Many interpretations were given to it. But today we return to this conversation because the coalition of civil society organizations have been back discussing this matter and looking towards what the real issues are and how we pick up this reform conversation again and do better to improve our governance at the local level. So my guest tonight to help us unpack what these issues are and what actions we ought to take going forward. Vera Addo is the youth advisor for the Volunteers Cooperation Program with Oxfam. Vera, good evening to you once again. Thank you for coming.
Good evening.
Wonderful. And Mausi Dumenu is the senior programs officer and team lead for elections at CDD Ghana. Mausi, good evening as well to you.
Yeah, Francis, good evening.
Okay, so right off the bat, we've done 30 years of this fourth Republican dispensation. A lot of talk has largely been about the president, members of parliament, the judiciary, the three key arms. But when you talk about governance at this minute level, at the assembly level, very little is seen or energy given to that process. Mausi, do you understand why that has become a distant governance structure for many citizens in the country?
All right, Francis, thank you very much, and good evening to your viewers. In terms of our local governance system, you realize that as a president, the head of the assembly or the MMDCs is the president that the constitution has mandated him to appoint leadership at that level. Yes. And so once that appointment is made, the MMDCs, their level of accountability is, and then allegiance is to the president, and then not necessarily the people. And so you would find them doing things to please the central government, or by extension the president, and not necessarily the people, and at the expense of the people. And so in a way, people do not feel connected to the assembly in that sense, because the DCs are not accountable to them. They do not make time for them. They do not even listen to them. And so that sort of brings some sort of disenchantment with the level of service delivery there. Even when the assembly is not delivering, or services at the local level are not happening very well, I mean, you can't even go and hold the MMDC to account for that. And so all these things have fed into why, even when it comes to the issue about turnout for elections at the assembly level, it's always has been very low. Maybe if you take out the very first assembly elections, maybe the subsequent ones has always been very low, not moving about 40%. And so all these have fed into it. And I think that the president, in his wisdom, decided to shelve part of that kind of power to allow for citizens to elect their own MMDCs. That will sort of have probably introduced a lot more interest in local governance. But then that didn't work out in 2019, obviously because of the issue about supposed no consensus on the issue. And so, I mean, that didn't happen.
Okay, so based on that, and that will be about 3 to 4 years since that conversation came around towards us deciding to want to elect MMDCs. But how many years down the line, what has triggered this renewed action by civil society organizations to have us relook at this state of our local governance system today? Vera?
Right. 30 years down the lane, you ask yourself, what is the mandate? What was the reason for local government structures? The idea is that let's take development to the people. Let's dissolve power. Let get people at the local level to contribute to development at their own level. We have to have a structure of governance such that not everything is done at the top. So the idea behind local government structures is that such that at the very local level, there will be people that can contribute to their own development. And at that level is about the basics, the basic necessities, water, sanitation, health. So are we able to live up to that mandate? We have seen the trend that it is not living, what is expected to do is not living it to its mandate, because there have been a lot of inefficiencies in terms of the administration. Mausi mentioned the issue about accountability. Most time, because DCEs are appointed by the president, they do not account to the people. Unlike the members of parliament, if I may use them as an example, they go around because they are being voted for. Usually they have to go back to the community, police station by police station. They say they are going for thank you tours. They want to go back because in the next 4 years, they are going to come back to them for elections again. And so there's some level of accountability, knowing that you are being voted and you have to listen to the people, the voices of the people. So you realize that over the period of some time, it's only been a tool for political or partisan activities at that level. And there are lots of inefficiencies like that. We need to have a second look at it. Is it living it to its expectation? Is it something we can continue like that? And it's okay for us as people to say that we started a system. Can we review it? Can we reflect on it and look at the lessons? Is it achieving its mandate? If not, what are the wrongs? What are the ills that we can put structures in place? So this is important because we've done it for 30 years is a long time, and it's important that we go back and look at it again. Some of the assemblies are not living into the expectation. They only wait for the central government to bring in the common fund. So if there's no common fund, nothing is happening. The IGF, but the assembly is supposed to mobilize resources, not resources. Revenue is just part of it. They are to look at human resources, natural resources. How can they ensure that at their local community they're able to mobilize all this to ensure that even if there's no money coming from the center, we are able to mobilize ourselves and then work around it, use the local resources that we have. Unfortunately, because every time there's money from the center, most of them do not put in effort. Because you have been appointed, nobody is going to inquire from you what you have to do or not to do. So it looks like there are a lot of them. Some are doing well, but others are not because of the structures in place. And it's good that we have to go back and look at the structure. Is it working for us? If not working for us, what needs to be changed? And this is a conversation that keeps coming up, and it's important that we have a second look at it. Especially, you spoke about the participation. You realize that the level of participation at the local governance is very low, even among young people. Look at the national elections, it's so high. Many young people, if you look at the data, more youth vote for at the national level. We have the largest population of voting, but it's not the same as the local level. So it means that we have to really look at it. Why is that so? The lack of attraction for most young people, and which is important for us to have a second look at it. That I have advocated that if we are a youth leader in the JCI and the SRC, can we transition from the student leadership to community leaders, unlike most people just wanting to transition from student leadership to become a member of parliament? There are over 6,000 assembly members, and we need to ensure that we have a lot of more young people there. So this exercise is very good for us as a nation to look at what is wrong, what can we do to ensure that we have a better system, that development is at the doorstep of everyone. You don't have to travel to Accra to see major developments happening.
It should be happening in every community.
Every corner, yeah.
Okay, so now that we fully understand why this system ought to work, key things that must catalyze to make it happen. One, participation. So if it's participation, does the election of MMDCEs and the other officers in leadership at the local assembly level become very important at this point as the spark that begins that process? Because without it, you won't have people come in and participate as much as you'd want to have. Mausi, what do you think?
Okay, so politically, yes, elections are very, very important. And even more so, a study that we did last year, was a survey that we conducted last year, points to that. And so consistently, we've had, several surveys from Afrobarometer and all that. When we put that together, it shows that citizens are really in for re-electing our MMDCs. And then our last survey showed that 76% of Ghanaians actually want MMDCs to be elected. And so when that happens, I believe that then people will have a sense that yes, we get to participate first of all in electing and then choosing our own leaders. That we can sieve through the many people that will contest. And
the sticking point that didn't make the referendum happen was because the push was for it to be along partisan lines. How many years down the line is that something that we should still address, go ahead to do a partisan, or we should still make it apolitical?
Okay, so that is the main reason why CSOs have bundled together, and then we are trying to champion this cause, because we believe that in the last push for this in 2019, this kind of binary arrangement where one group is saying we want to have a partisan election or multi-party elections within the local government space where parties can be sponsored or can sponsor candidates to contest. The other group said, no, we don't want that partisanship. At least there should be some form of appointment. That kind of binary stance sort of breeds a lot of entrenched positions. And so nobody wants to badge for the other person. So NDC doesn't want to badge for MPP to pass it through, so that they will be seen as something that the MPP put in their manifesto, and so they've been able to deliver on that. The MPP will make noise about it, and so we never made any progress with that. And so we think that going forward, we still need to bring the issue about elections in general. Okay, fine. The issue about, I mean, whether it should be on partisan basis or not, should be a bit secondary, because there are several other reforms that need to happen, and I think Vera touched on quite a number of them that we need to look at holistically. And so, you know, the local government system currently as it is was structured in such a way that you have the center or the president appointing who the MMDC is, and then you'd have members of the assembly that are elected, not on party lines and all that. And so if we want to switch to, let's say, assume we want to switch to having election of MMDCs, we still cannot maintain that structure that we have, because we need to think through carefully how the relationship between the elected MMDC and, let's say, the elected assembly members will be. What will be the relationship between the elected MMDC and, let's say, the center, the regional minister, or the RCC, and then the president? And so we need to think through all these things carefully, and you know, find ways of regulating that kind of relationship in such a way that it will not be acrimonious, or nobody would want to sort of sabotage the other, because maybe you feel that I may not be aligned to your party, and so from the center you want to undermine me, or because I'm at the local level as a DC, I may not be aligned to your party, so I want to undermine you. So we need to think critically about these things even as you are going forward. And issue about, Vera talked about the issue of inclusion. How do we get more women to get in there? How do we get more youth to also be part of it? And then persons with disability or persons who are marginalized in society, how do we find creative ways to get them into the space to be part of the whole process, to serve, and also for their interests and their needs to also be met? We are also looking at the issue about chiefs, because when you look at the current constitution says that chiefs should not, participate in active party politics, and so there's that provision for them that once the 30% 30% appointments are being done, chiefs need to be consulted. But in a lot of cases, chiefs are not even consulted, or most chiefs are not even consulted, except they may be the ones that are very, very influential. And so they tend to find their own people in there. And so when we move into the realm of elections, I'm just taking elections on a broad scale. When we move into the realm of elections, that sort of consultative leverage that the chiefs or the traditional authority enjoy would fizzle out or become dead. And so chiefs, we realize that chiefs enjoy or they wield a lot of power within the spaces within which they govern. Even though it's traditional. And so we need to think creatively about how then do we include the chiefs in such a way that they are still part of our local governance structure in a way that makes them to be able to contribute effectively towards the development of their local communities, and at the same time they do not become disruptive to the democracy that we have, because they can rule for life and all that. And so we need to have that balance, and so we need to think through carefully on all proposals around these issues, so that when we are talking about reforms, we'll not just be thinking of, let's just go partisan or non-partisan, and then you just take it with a stroke of a pen and then we are done with it. But we need to think critically around all other issues, which also includes the resource mobilization that Vera talked about. And so it's very holistic, and so that is a kind of agenda that we as civil society are trying to push, that let's move the process forward beyond that kind of stalemate that was experienced in 2019. Because if we still want to hold on to those entrenched positions, we will still come back
and not have a local governance system as strong as we want.
We will not make any progress. And we've had a golden opportunity where the president was really willing to seize some of his power. So we are still within that phase from now to 2024. We don't have so much time to get these things going, but at least there's a bit of opportunity to move this process forward.
Two things I wanted to broach based on what you've explained. You talk about inclusion for the chiefs, for the women, for persons with disability, and their contribution at the local government level. Is the matter of the weight of investment in our local governance system partly the reason why we don't have as much interest? And I ask this question with a certain background and context. If an MP is elected, the funds they have access to, be it their salaries, their pay, their allowances, the car loan, the other ancillaries that come with it, as against a DCE who will be elected, or an assemblyman who will be elected to work at the local level. Is that also a part of this reform that we should pay attention to, where people who leave student leadership, people who transition, see it as a viable career path to be able to come in, contribute their bit, serve honestly, and earn decently to be able to stay in that space and still do well? Vera, what do you say?
Right. I think that you've given an answer to your question.
Okay. I was only opening the context of the conversation. Yeah.
So I am advocating for students to transition from student leadership to community level. But you brought in a very important bit about how attractive it's going to be for them. We know the situation, we know the current economy. So if after university you are going to set, currently assembly members are not paid. It's seen as a volunteer job. They are given some certain allowances, and the certain allowances are based on the strength of the assembly, how much they're able to mobilize their own resources. And so if you are in certain assemblies, you can imagine how much they are taking. You ask assembly members and they will tell you that they are being owned. So they've gone for about 3 meetings and they've not been paid their allowances because they do not have funding for them. So these are all part of the reforms. If you are looking at enhancing the structure at the local level, and we want students, young people to participate, what do we want them to do? What impact are we asking them to come and do at that level? So is this that they're going to be paid? Do we want to now look at assembly members being paid to serve, to do full-time? Now people are doing it part-time. You are not paid, so they have to go mobilize their own resources. Some of them are using their own means to support and facilitate some of these community actions that they go on. So it takes it's a lot of Mausi mentioned. We have to look at a holistic plan. So the local government structures or the reforms goes beyond just looking at is it going to be on party basis or non-party basis, but we want to look at the whole structure. Assembly members, do we want to pay them? We all have to build consensus at this point to ensure that this is what we want. We want to ensure that all those who go in there. For women participation, currently we have about over 6,000 assembly members. Only 460 of them.
6,000.
Yes.
That's less than 10%.
Yeah.
Actually less. Okay, yeah. That's the point where I go for my next break. Now, when we come back, we will talk about this layer of our democracy and how much how much attention we want to give to it, how much work needs to go into it to really make it work. Before I go for that break, may I remind you that this show is brought to you with the kindness of sponsorship of MTN. MTN is everywhere you go. If you need to make that urgent call, as I said, all you need to do is dial *506#. You'll be able to borrow extra airtime to be able to make that call, or with the same *506#, have the ability to borrow data so you can get that business deal you want to close quickly and send that mail, or for that phone call to close that deal, or to call someone urgently to finish a conversation. All these don't have to end because you run out of data or out of airtime. MTN has made it possible for you to borrow some extra time, get that sorted out on MTN Extra Time. Also, if you're a parent, my recommendation for you for milk, if you're thinking milk for your family, has got to be Carbol. Carbol, because it contains vitamins called Vitarich, which helps with essential development and healthy growth. Carbol is definitely our milk. Quick break. When we're back, we'll deal with the issues relative to how we make our local government system work and what you and I have to do to make it happen. Stay with us.
Carbol has 5 flavors: banana, strawberry, chocolate, coconut. What's the 5th one?
Banana.
Banana?
Okay, Dad. Including mocha, Carbol has 5 flavors: banana, strawberry, chocolate, and coconut. What is the 5th one?
Strawberry!
No.
Are you feeling hot?
Honey, including mocha. Cabo has 5 flavors: strawberry, banana, chocomalt, coconut. What's the 5th one?
Chocomalt?
Hey!
Coconut!
Hey!
Nutritious and refreshing, Cowbell has a flavor for everyone.
They think I don't know.
This advert is FDA approved.
Water is life. Water gives life. Water moves through nature in a never-ending cycle. Observe the beauty of water as it flows all around us, refreshing and restoring. Gaze in wonder at the stillness and beauty of nature. There's harmony in nature everywhere around. Water revitalizes the body and keeps you going strong. Water is life. Water gives life. Drink Awake Purified Drinking Water. One for life. So relax and unwind, and in the calmness of nature, find the rest you desire. For every bottle of Awake you buy, an amount to be donated to the National Cardiothoracic Center. This advert is FDA approved.
Dad, including mocha, Cabo has 5 flavors: banana, strawberry, chocomalt, coconut. What's the 5th one?
Banana!
Banana?
Okay, Dad. Including mocha, Cabo has 5 flavors: banana, strawberry, chocomalt, and coconut. What is the 5th one?
Strawberry!
No.
Are you feeling hot?
Honey, including mocha. Cabo has 5 flavors: strawberry, banana, chocomalt, coconut. What's the 5th one?
Chocomalt?
Hey!
Coconut!
Hey!
Nutritious and refreshing, Cowbell has a flavor for everyone.
They think I don't know.
This advert is FDA approved.
Thanks for staying with us. You're watching State of Affairs here on GHOne Television. I'm Francis Aban. Tonight we are discussing the state of local governance in Ghana and what we can all do together to really make it work. So last point for me as we draw the curtain on our conversation tonight is on the practical steps and what every Ghanaian has to do to ensure that our local governance system actually works. I'll start with you. Okay, let me start with you, Mausi, on this one. How do we make it work? And what's the role of the citizen in playing their part in understanding the process and also contributing to have our local government system work?
Okay, so Francis, I think we all have a duty to let every Ghanaian understand the implications of the choices that we made. Mm-hmm. So, for instance, the survey that we did, 76% said they want elections. At the same time, 71% say they don't want MMDCs to be elected on partisan basis.
Okay. So by means we should have elections, but not on partisan lines.
No, on partisan lines.
But
okay. So
the one who's making the referendum happen says it must be partisan lines.
So what do we do? It's at variance. Okay, so it's part of the conversation that we need to keep on having, the kind of education that we need to let people have. Okay, but I believe that. Even with some consultations that we did and some experiments that we did, it's likely that people, when you talk to people and then you give them that assurance that, I mean, if you want to, we can sanitize things at the local level in terms of, let's say, campaign financing. How do we restrict how campaigns can be done? I mean, can we place a cap on how campaigns can be done at the local level? Maybe we restrict the time to, let's say, 2 months, 1 month for election. You can billboards and all those things. You limit all those things, and then there are punitive measures or sanctions in place. If people understand that we can be able to regulate certain behaviors of political parties, they are likely to probably shift their position. And so that gives us the indication that we need to educate the citizens. We need to let them understand some of the choices that they have, or some of the choices that they make, and then the assurance that if we want to move the processes forward, there are quite a number of things that we need to change, and so that education needs to also kick in. But I believe that there is also some other aspect of this conversation that I'm not sure we've really delved into. So the issue about the resources or the financial resources that's supposed to go to the assembly level, it's supposed to be 5% of, let's say, 5% of all government revenue, but as it stands now, it's less than 5% that goes, and estimates are tending towards about 3%. And even with that 3%, it's always in arrears of about 3-4 quarters and all that. And so nothing really happens at a local level without that lifeline from the District Assembly Common Fund and other statutory funds.
Do you think the way it is now,
in addition to that,
it is set up to fail?
In addition. That is how come we think. That's how come we think that we need to look at all these things holistically to re-engineer or retool our local government system. But I want to just land on one point. You see, there's also another part where when you check the last budget that was read by the finance minister, there's a portion of it that states that property taxes that needs to be collected at the assembly level. That whole process has now the central government has been centralized, and so that is also one key part of resources or a gold mine that we've not really tapped into. And so we believe that those things need to be reversed. The local government, because all the juicy sources of funds that the local assemblies can raise for their own development are being taken away, and so all these things need to be restored. And so we need to think critically about what do we do with the MMDAs or the big MMDAs or
to make things happen.
Do we need to win them of certain funds and then open up the fiscal space for them to be able to raise enough money? We need to think through all these things. And
I'm out of time, so I just want to give her a minute on this for us to end. How do we allow this local governance system to work? In a minute.
I would want to encourage all young people, especially, we have the numbers. If you look at the Ghana Saska survey recently done, over 56% are under the age of 25. So it tells that we have a youthful population, and we don't have to leave our governance to certain people. We have to be part of this whole process. Let's use it as capacity building exercise for us, and let's hold our leaders accountable. If you look at the activism that happened at the national level, if we can even go down a bit with just a small percentage at the local level, we can see some results. So I think that we don't have to leave it there. And also for the reforms, let's start something. The Article 55(3) is the entrenched one that we have to have the referendum. But the 243(1), we can just go ahead with something. So the next elections, can we ensure that we vote for our MMDEs? And so we need more people to participate. Let's join in the conversation to build a consensus to move forward, because we seem to be marking time at one point, and there are more room for improvement for us too.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Youth Advisor for the Volunteers Cooperative Program for Oxfam. Thank you for joining us. Also, Mausi Dumenu, Senior Programs Website Team Lead for Elections at CDD Ghana. It's been very interesting tonight. There's a lot we have to do to let our systems work, and I thank you for connecting and being a part of the show tonight. It's brought to you by MTN. MTN is everywhere you go. Dial star 506 hash if you're running out of credit to get that extra time, be it for calls or for data. And also choose Cowbell, our milk, for all your milk needs. That'll be it for State of Affairs tonight. I'm Francis Aban. Good night.